So to make the raindrops cane, you can make it with any color that you like. Just make a Skinner blend, and you want a lot of contrast from one end to the other. So you might need to add some white. It just works best with a high contrast. So once you make your Skinner blend, make yourself a fan fold block. And a square is fine, because you know we can rearrange it if we want. And it doesn't need to be real thick. And actually, it's easier if it's not real thick. So I would never ever make it more than 1 inch thick. And that has to do with the cutters that are going to be used in a later step. And many cutters are not any longer than 1 inch. So you can't cut nicely. So that's that. So this demo assumes you know how to make a Skinner blend, and maybe you have brought one along and you've prepared it and you have it in a block. And depending on how big of a block you made, what you want to do is get that block now to a place where in this direction it's no more than 1 inch thick. You lay it down. It could be square. It could be a rectangle. I could make it a rectangle pretty quickly, because we all know how to reduce canes. So I'm going to just make this into a little bit of a rectangle right now. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a roll. Hope I get all my air bubbles out. Don't worry about if it's too thin. It probably can't be too thin. Well, maybe it could. 1/2 inch to 1 inch is really nice. I could probably have 3/8 of an inch here because I have a tiny block of clay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off a piece off the end. Maybe that much. So what's that? A 1/5, an 1/8? Oh, I guess I could have measured it. Let's see, which was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So a 1/7 or an 1/8 approximately. And keep it just like that. Put that off to the side. And let's take this block. Now, it can be a square, it could be a rectangle, actually, as I'm thinking about this. A square is easier to reduce. So let's make it a square. And then you can always do it again and change it. Little air bubble there. I'm just going to slice through them, try to have them not show up later and be stupid problems. Okay. Now what we're going to do now is take our round cutter, and everybody's got different cutters. So if you have the Kemper cutters, your 2 smallest ones are going to be here. You're going to have this little tiny one that's, what's that, an 1/8 of an inch, I guess, and then this one that's maybe a 1/4 of an inch or a little less. And I don't like either one. One's too big, one's too small. But I have this set of nested brass tube cutters. There's a whole bunch in here. There's probably 10 or maybe 8 or 10, all different diameters. Probably can't see. There you go. You can see it there. So I'm going to use this because this is the diameter that I like for a cane this size. If I was making a larger cane, I would use a larger diameter cutter, and then maybe this one would be suitable. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to work on this face. And now that we've got this thing 1 inch, I gave it to you in the wrong direction. So you need to have this face up. This is our working face. And our 1/2 inch thickness is this way. So I'm going to get my roller in, get a little help from there, and rearrange this. So I love polymer clay. How quickly we can say, ooh, went the wrong way, and look here, I'll fix that real fast. Okay, now we've got what we're supposed to have. We've got our Skinner block going the same way. So maybe I'll wait and let everybody catch up, because if you were following along, you're going, she told me to do that the wrong way. Or maybe you're sitting there saying, oh, I wondered when she was going to figure that out. I've got mine all ready to go. Okay, now, in a later step, we're going to be taking this and cutting it in half and mirroring it so that face to face. So we're thinking about half the design right now. And I usually put 3 circles in. I could put 1 or 2 or 3. More than 3, I think, gets busy. Again, it's personal taste, really. So I'm just going to make a mark on the top here where I want my, that's where I want my 3 drops. I'm going to take my knife, my blade, and I'm going to cut through the center of these. And if I can cut 2 with 1 slice, that makes my life a little easier. So I could get these 2 with 1 slice. So I'm going to cut there. And then I'm going to take this one and cut right through the center. Now we're just going to take this apart for a minute. Now I'm going to take my cutter, and what I want to do is take out the circle 1/2 at a time. It gets a cleaner cut. It doesn't distort the rest of the cane when you do it this way, and it's just a lot easier. You want to go straight down. And if you turn it around to get a better angle, don't forget to turn it back the other way. Well, you'll see that when you go to match it up. And I like to clear that after each punch because it's really hard to clear out when it's full of clay. And what do we have? One more, right? This one. No, we have 2 more. There it is, I see it. So, again, we want to have, so is everything going the right way? No, this has to go this way. All right, so when we put it, so now what we've done is we've created the space for our drops. Now we have to fill it. So now the little piece that we saved, this little piece isn't going to fit. It's way too big. We're going to reduce it carefully. We're going to just take it down, stretch it out, make it long, keep the blend running from top to bottom. And when we get it to the where it's going to fit in those holes, you can roll it a little bit carefully so you don't, again, you don't want to distort it. You want to, I mean, you do want to get it to be round, so you have to just, it's clay, you work with it. It's a little rough on the edge here. Clay is interesting how it responds. You can, if you just keep working it gently and you smooth it, all those little molecules inside, they all get to moving. I swear they're dynamic. So now this looks like it's, now I can take my cutter that I used and I can gauge the diameter of my snake, and it's still a little bit big, but in the center it's a little bit small, but I'm pretty darn close. And I'd almost rather be a little bit too big than too small. because I don't want to have an air gap in this when I put it back together. So now we're going to take, now when I put this together, I don't want the red to disappear into the red of that. So we want to just be mindful of how we're orienting it. Some of it's going to disappear, but point the white part of the snake into the red part of the block. Slice that off and bring that together. Now, if you've got your gradient like mine, where it's kind of sloppy and you can see all the lines, you know, you be careful lining it back up. Now, again, you want to kind of, now don't make them all go exactly the same. Well, I suppose you could. I would prefer that they go slightly different directions. It is, I guess in a sense you are trying to simulate the way light is hitting. You're doing a light shadow effect, so maybe they should go the same way. But I guess I don't know that for sure. Now down here, I'm in the white and the red, so now I'm going to take a different tack here. If I put it this way, it's going to pretty much disappear, and it's going to be, why did we bother? So I'm gonna rotate this one pretty hard. Put it there. And trim off and put it together the right way. Now, yeah, there's a big air gap there, isn't there? But we can close this because it's not in, because we can. And we're just going to press this together evenly. Try to keep it from bulging. If you press these two sides together while you're pushing these, and then rotate it and do the same thing, you can, now this side's puckering in. Now, just a short tip for those folks that maybe are new to caning. When you see the pucker in and the push out, that means that the pressure that you're placing on the cane is not in the center. If you always push from the center and never push from the ends, then what you'll get is a bulge at both sides. See how that pucker's starting to come back out just by only pushing from the middle. I started to release that. Now this is starting to look a little funky, but I can fix this because it's clay. I like these acrylic plates. They're just wonderful. I use them all the time, especially for reducing small canes or big canes. But I just press down. It allows me to press evenly. And so I can get a lot of press and keep rotating it around. And so now I'm keeping my square shape and I'm reducing it at the same time. And because I'm reducing it evenly with even pressure, you notice that this, while this is still puckered, it hasn't gotten more puckered, and this hasn't started to bulge any more than it was. And that's proof that if you can apply consistent pressure across the entirety of it, you won't get any problems on the ends. If I was to be leaning one way or the other with my hand, then the pucker or the bulge would start to become dominant, and that's easily remedied by flipping the cane. Now, I could work this a little bit. I could also take the easy way out and just trim off the sloppy ends, and that's what I'm going to do. So now here's what we've got. We've taken our 3 dots, and you can see how the red of the dot does start to disappear into the red of the other, but because it's a gradient, you do get that subtle shading. Now what I like to do here is cut this in half and bring the faces together. Now, sometimes I put the faces together this way. Sometimes I put them together this way. You could just line them up like that. You could line them up like this. You could do all sorts of things with them. This is now where you really are getting into personal preference. So I'm going to do a straightforward mirror on the light sides. And I didn't do a clean cut in half, so I got a little extra piece there. And at this point, you really have, you have two easy choices. Well, you have two choices. You can go and continue to reduce this again, making it longer and smaller. And then you can cut it again and stack it. You could reduce it to where you can make 4 cuts, and then you would get a little block. The little 4 block treatment is nice because it lets you do a rotational, and I'm going to stop and just show you how. You see how the ends of this cane are only just slightly bulged out from true, and that's because I was using the pressure there, and I can just clean that up, and so I don't have any loss there, which is sweet. So what did I say? 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can do this and turn each one a different way. I like this one better. And this is ends up being a nice little thing that you can turn it into a triangle and do things with. This one, the other way you can play with this is to slice it and make a veneer. And you can put it together that way. And that's a lovely thing to do. You can take, well, let's make this a little bit smaller. So here's my acrylic plate again, and here's my little cane that's 1/4 inch thick. It's very hard to manipulate by hand. But I can make it flat, and I can work with this and carefully press around and pick out the little stray piece of blue in the middle. I'll leave it there for grins. I was working on this one the other night, and I did this layout with this cane in a different color. And the pattern morphed in a really interesting way, and I'm curious to see if it replicates or if that was just a lucky thing. I'm gonna So that's a fun pattern. It's taking on a little bit of a swirl, which is nice. You almost could see, I don't know what you could see. It didn't do the same thing that my one the other day did, so I think it has a lot to do with how you hold the... Now I'm going to cut this in half again because I'm interested to see what would happen if we took one side and made it into a teardrop. Well, let's make it into a triangle. And cut it in half and mirror it. Now that could be an interesting little thing. I can probably cut that in half one more time. And then we get an idea of how a round. Okay, so now see what we did? We went from this little thing, we made this, we made that, we made that. I'll show you another little thing that's fun to do. If you take a cane and cut it, well, I don't know if it's going to work with, well, it might. Might work better with that one. Cut it in an angle. And you take your little snake and you put it right there, and you bring the points up around like that, and you get a little interesting something that I'll bet would be even more interesting with some planning, probably. Now, I think that that was a really big eyeball, so I'm going to make this one a little smaller. And I'm going to put the white face down this time. And bring this around. And so now we have these cute little teardrop earrings. Okay, that's the way to go. You could take these to the pasta machine and, excuse the noise, you could roll a piece out and stretch your circles. If you roll it out with a little more thoughtful intent and go this way and then that way, then you could just make it bigger, and you could just distort some of it, and you can get some interesting distortions, kind of like the way it swirls around. And then maybe you want to get a cutter and go in and make a, find yourself a pair of earrings right here. Oh, it's going to be a tight squeeze. We're going to make it. No, we didn't make it. But you get the idea. The sheets really do play out nice for earring patterns. We could do that just to give you an idea. And there, and I call it the Raindrops Cane because I think it looks like raindrops.